Call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Munson Board of Health, 5:05. Since we have Pamela on the phone, let's go ahead and start with the hot dogs, the hot dog cart. Lori, were you able to get any additional information on this week?
Yeah, he's been contacting us throughout the week, and so I think right now is maybe let them discuss what it is that they want from the Board of Health at this point, because I think that some of their ideas have changed. Is that right, Pam?
So it's Pam and my husband Kenny. I don't know how to change the name from showing as Pam. So anyway, essentially we tried reaching out to the highway department to see about the on and off 32. Since we disclosed that we wanted it by Memorial Hall, we were then referred over to the town, which oddly enough, Kenny got an email from Autumn saying that he left the voicemail to the highway department on her voicemail, which I don't even know how that happened, but we haven't heard back, needless to say. So we were seeking permission to do that. It seemed like from the last meeting that we were told that everything had to be investigated through your end, but when we went on the website, it seems like there is a permit for daily use for mobile food trucks that's available on the Board of Health website. So I guess I'm just confused on why we're not getting a firm answer if we can proceed or not. If it's strictly location, we offered to do it on site at our property since we're property owners, Wilbraham Road, and we have enough road frontage to kind of go on and off for the daily Monday through Friday when we're not having events. I think that's everything, but last week we just weren't really getting firm answers, and we kind of need something to go with before we start investing on equipment.
Right. So I think one of the questions, I think kind of what we're trying to decide is a couple of things. One is a venue for them to be able to set up their cart. And so I'm not sure of the bylaws or the zoning in town that allows you to either park on Main Street and service, from Main Street. Does it have, if it's on somebody else's property or if it's off of 32, do you need, or on town property, you need town permission. If it's on their private property, is it zoned to have that type of a business there, or that not even a concern? And then the second part of the issue is to what type of a permit do we give? We have the day permits. Seasonal is usually in a permanent spot for a season, like up at the campground or something like that. We have a seasonal permit. So I think that's the second part of what it is we need to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the path of least resistance is really what we're looking for right now to kind of get established. So, we're willing to kind of work with what we have, but.
Evan, can you speak to any bylaws or any town restrictions? And Lori, my thought is the mobile food permit, we would just have to figure out what your requirements for inspection will be, I think.
Right. Yeah. Let Evan go first if he knows anything about that part. Evan?
You're killing me, Lori. I was not aware that this is the first I'm getting looped in on this. So let me. I'm reading something real quick, and I will be right back.
Okay. All right. So I'll go. Yeah. So the inspection thing is pretty simple. It's a matter of me initially inspecting their cart, making sure that they have everything that they need prior to them going out. And doing their thing. So then the second part then is where they're going to go. So if you're setting up on if it's going to be, once a week or once every week at a certain place, I usually inspect depending on how the permit is laid out. If it's a one-day event, I go for that one day. If it's a week, throughout a week, then I might go 2 or 3 times that week. You know, if it's a seasonal, I go 3 or 4 times during the season. So it's going to depend on what type of permit they get, depending on how my inspections will fall into that.
Okay, so we do, do you know the permit? I don't think we've used it, other than, I really can't think of a time that we've used it in the recent past, the mobile food permit, which is the one that, I mean,
Yeah, so we have different mobile food permits. So we can do a mobile food permit for a day. We could do it for a week. We can do it for a season. We can do it for just one venue. We can do, if it's a different
And
type of venue, you know.
Pam and Ken, are you looking to have this as like a year round or like a summer thing? What are your thoughts on that?
Sorry, trying to unmute.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely was thinking about, seasonal, or really yearly if I could do it.
If the business demand's there, but
If the business demand is there, yeah, probably not through the winter, but probably, probably 6-7 months out of the year, from probably, mid-spring to, September, October, maybe.
Yeah, that sounds like a seasonal, pretty much. And I'm sure you're going to be going to other towns and doing other
Right, on the weekends.
fairs and whatnot. Yep.
Yeah, we were hoping to have like the day-to-day, like Monday through Friday, either set up in one specific location if we could get permission from the town, whether it's either on the road for 2 hours, or window, or like I said, we could do private property. We had a few places that we were going to get permission from, but we just wanted to make sure that we apply the right way and kind of get on the right path. It was brought up last time that there was petitioning against local food businesses. So I guess, is that something that you just cross that path when it happens? I mean, we support all local businesses, and I don't feel like this interferes with any of their business, the hot dogs.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, how that, there was that one cart that one mobile unit that was outside on Main Street for a while, and there were other businesses that felt that, that it wasn't fair that she could come and be on that Main Street area and interfere with the other businesses. So I'm not even sure why she left, if that was even a reason why. I don't know the backstory and all of that.
Yeah, that may have even just been like, small town kind of issues, but I think that, definitely there's parking spaces on Main Street that go to the business that they're in front of. Like we wouldn't want you to park in front of the tavern, or
Yeah, we were
but,
thinking more Memorial Hall area, or like, the bus stop area across from the gazebo.
Or really down the street from there.
Or even down the street from there. But yeah, I get what you're saying with in front of the business.
so, Evan, did you any luck finding anything?
Yeah, nothing really pertains to on street, and so I just have to figure out the first one I've done that has an on street component to it. But I would say that, you might run into issues trying to do it, say, on Wilbraham Road, because that's rural residential. But downtown, it would seem that that would be an allowable use. And I would think that, your Memorial Hall gazebo area is probably preferential if you're going to do on-street, only because of the proximity to other businesses, and then also just traffic in general.
What about, sorry to cut you off, but what about like the town parks, like baseball games or something, like Flint Park or Veterans Field? I guess that brings us back to, does it have to be stationary, or can we go to like, the events?
So any use of the public parks have to be authorized by the Park and Rec Commission. They're an elected commission here in town. And so I can't really give you an answer to that. It would be up to them, because I know they have like booster organizations and things that sell for fundraising opportunities for those particular things. But I can, so I've, it's 5:15. I've only really been looped into this for about 10 minutes. So I can certainly get a laundry list of questions together that I can bring to the team and turn it around pretty quick. Within a couple of days, I would think, as far as zoning and use like that. But I think the concept is cool. I like hot dogs.
Cool. So do we. We appreciate it. Yeah, no, we appreciate all this advice. This is new ventures for us. And we're just trying to kind of, we'd like to dabble into it in town and then just do out of town events and get those temporary permits.
Yeah, and so just before I remute myself here, I understand there's a little frustration with the back and forth, but as you said, it's new for you, and I think it's new for us as well. For the town of Munson, this is not something that's been in our bailiwick, all along. So maybe a little bit slow to spool up, but I think, like I said, I think I can get your contact information from the Board of Health, and then we can relay some information back to you as far as zoning, street use, things like that.
Cool. Really appreciate it.
And then Lori, you want to have Autumn send them a seasonal mobile food permit and go about it that way?
Yeah, and then once, I don't think their truck is even finished yet. So once the truck is finished, finally put together, I need to do an inspection.
Perfect. Yep.
And
Bo
then,
and Mary, do either of you have any input?
I think it's wonderful, and I wish them luck.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right. Bo, did you want to say something?
Yeah, Mary and I were talking at the same time. I said, no, sounds good so far. Got to go through the process and very good. Looking forward to proving that under a plan we can approve.
Okay. All right, Autumn, you can reach out to Pam and Ken or touch base with them and get them the correct permit.
Will do.
Thank you. Is Tony from River Hollow on today?
he's not going to be able to, no, he's not going to be able to make it because he has a board meeting in Ludlow.
Okay.
But he has really put together a very comprehensive packet of how he is going to run the driving range at his place. And one of the things I think that if you look through the protocol and the guidance that the governor has put out regarding outdoor activities, one of the things that they're saying is that they want to start getting people out in a safe and very organized manner so that they can start enjoying the outdoors and being active. And so I think having the opportunity for people to go to this place of business to do that activity and to do it safely is something that we should allow them to do. And it's going to be difficult as just to backstep a little bit, it's going to be difficult as these phases come through because people, if a business is allowed to open during a certain phase, they don't necessarily have to come to us for permission. They can open up, and then the only time that we would ever have to follow through with any kind of inquiry would be if we got some type of a complaint, and then we would make sure that we would go there. They have to have all their protocol written for anybody that's investigating to make sure that they've got everything that the state is requiring them to do. It doesn't have to be pre-approved by us prior to anybody opening up their business. So I think Tony did a very good job in providing us the information to give us the opportunity to look it over and show us that he's really put a lot of thought and time into giving his customers a very safe and fun activity to do. as this weather's getting nicer.
I agree. I think that his plan was really well thought out, and he included a lot of detail in it. Bo, Mary, did you review the info from Tony at River Hollow?
Yeah, I have. I think it was so good. Go ahead, Mary.
I have, and I'm all set with it.
Okay. Bo, did you have any? Did you want to add any input or thoughts on it?
No, I'm just reviewing it again. I have it on my screen. When they're open for business, maybe it's there and I missed it. How will the owner or their designee or designees be present at all times to observe what's going on and to keep people following guidelines?
Yeah, it's my understanding that's going to be him and his wife.
Yeah. Okay, that's the only thing I couldn't quite put my eyeball on here at this moment. So, looks very good to me.
Good. Okay.
Bo, do you want to make a motion to approve the opening and the plans presented?
Is that me?
Yeah, do you want to make a motion to approve?
I certainly do. I make a motion to approve the River Hollows plan as presented to the Board of Health on this date, 5/20, to reopen the River Hollow facilities as presented to us in writing and on record. And I am in favor. I'm making a motion to approve of that.
I'll second it.
Okay, then roll call voting. Any discussion? All right, Bo, your vote?
Yay.
Mary, your vote?
Yes.
And Audra is a yes, so all in favor. Autumn, can you communicate that information to Tony, please?
I will, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Tim from Park and Rec for the opening of the disc golf course.
How you doing?
Hey, Tim.
So as far as I understood, I was on the conference call with the state yesterday about the opening of parks. The two areas we'd like to open would be the disc golf course with the guidelines that most other courses that already opened a week ago or so are using, and as well as the tennis courts.
Yeah, I think I've been in touch with Tim here over the past week or two, and he does have in place rules that applies to make it safer for the people to gather, the 4 people per group, and social distancing and using your own Frisbee, and you know, various rules and regulations of how the game is played and how to do it safely, and you know, time in between you know, even if there's somebody slow in front of you, you just got to wait and then, you know, just keep it moving. And so there are other places that have it open, and I think he's presented a good plan as well to be able to open that back up to the people that enjoy the game or sport, whatever it is.
Oh, the sports, fastest growing sport in the U.S. right now.
Okay.
Bo, Mary, do either of you have any questions or input on the reopening of the disc golf course, not Frisbee, disc golf course?
I bought my new Frisbee the day they shut the course down, so I am rearing and ready to go. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm good with that.
And I think you'll find if I'm up there and people aren't following the rules, we'll take action to that. I mean, I've talked to some of the other courses in the area, and people have been pretty good about following that set of rules. They're just excited they can play.
I agree. It's good to get everybody out.
Yeah. So, and with the tennis courts, is it like just kind of open and there's no regulations? No.
There were a few
foreseeable
regulations. There were a few regulations. If the courts are taken that you are to wait outside of the fenced-in area and the gate until a court is available and not wait inside. I've ordered, hoping it was going to go well, ordered signs. The state said wearing a mask is recommended and it's mandatory if you cannot maintain 6 feet of social distancing protocol. The part about, staying outside the fence if you're waiting for a court. No organized games or tournaments are allowed. So it has to be just you and the one other. It doesn't say anything about doubles or singles, but
Yeah. I think if you're closer than 6 feet, you might not be playing tennis right.
yeah, I think it's a good possibility we'll be more than 6 feet apart.
Okay. Mary or Bo, either one of you want to make a motion to approve the reopening of the disc golf course and the tennis courts for Park and Rec?
I make a motion to reopen the disc courts, whatever they are, in the tennis.
Disc golf courses, yes. I'll second that.
All right. Mary, your vote.
Yes.
Bo, your vote.
Yes, in favor.
And Audra votes yes in favor. It's all in favor. So, thank you, Tim.
Yeah, thank you. We also, there's a practice area at the disc golf course that people hang out and practice. We took those baskets right out of the ground so that people will not tend to hang out there as often, to try to make it a little safer too.
And you don't have porta potties there, do you?
There is one porta potty there. It's
I
there.
haven't heard anything about porta potties in
Me
this
either.
whole
It's been there
thing.
12 months, a year.
Yeah.
But I mean, if anyone hears anything that it shouldn't be there, I can at any time give them a call and have them come get it. That's the only one I have in town right now. I didn't bring the back one to the playgrounds or anything like that.
Lori?
Yeah, I'll take a look. There's some stuff like at beaches and stuff for public bathrooms and various, protocol for cleaning once a day and thoroughly once a week or however that is. But I'll take a look at that. There's some stuff online for restroom things.
Okay.
And I know that they did allow porta potties for golf courses because they weren't allowing people to go into the country club to use their bathrooms, but instead they were allowing the porta potties. So I guess that'll probably go along the same thing with your disc
Okay,
golf.
but so if you find that it shouldn't be there, I'll get on
Okay.
the phone and have it removed.
Okay. Will do.
This Bo, we have a precedent which we addressed last week, or the week before, and that is the porta potty, which is at the Keep Homestead Trails and the Community Garden. Community Garden, the protocol outlined that they would clean it and make available cleaners inside, hand sanitizers, and had a protocol drawn up about maintaining the porta potty presently. So we could look into that and get back for sure.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. All right. Next on the agenda is the appointment of health agents with the Munson Police Department. So a little bit of background on this is for everybody that's on. There is a provision that allows, currently the only group that can respond to any COVID regulation or COVID issues in town is the Board of Health. Lori works in our community and 2 other communities and is not here full time. So this provision, if we appointed the Munson Police Department as agents of the Board of Health, would allow them to respond to issues in town related to COVID and assist us in educating and helping to keep the community healthy and safe. This is not about finding people for not wearing masks. This is not about trying to put stricter regulations on anything. Our first and foremost goal is to educate and to try to use that as our tool of mediating these situations. Additionally, this would just basically give us some backup that the town would be able to assist the board in things as simple as 12 teenagers hanging out on the skate park with no face coverings. The skate park's closed, so they shouldn't be there. And they're not social distancing, they're not wearing face coverings. Something as simple as that, having somebody on a Sunday that's already here in town that could go and say, guys, this is what you should be doing, this is why you should be doing it, you can't be on this equipment, and them having the ability to do that is a lot more beneficial to everybody than Lori having to come in from where she lives to do that. Lori, do you want to speak a little more to that?
Yeah, there's something you said that I just wanted to further explain. I can't remember what it was. Yeah, so the police, if they're appointed as the Board of Health, they can respond as a health agent. If they get called in as a police just as a matter of the police, then they have to respond in the manner that they do as a police officer. So being appointed as a health inspector allows them to respond less, less punitively.
With less severity.
With less severity on a lower level. So it could just be an information thing. But from what I understood when Chief was on a couple of weeks ago, and talking to some of my other officers, is that allowing them to do that, it just gives the opportunity for more cohesiveness in the town as far as people understanding what it is that we're requiring, that the governor is requiring us to do. And I think that it's going to be something, whether it's face masks or whether it's businesses not non-complying with whether they're open or not open, or what the case might be. It's just would allow a more friendlier response in the event that I can't make it out to handle something when it's happening, because I think that's where people learn more efficiently than rather, a day later with a phone call and that sort of thing. So I would appreciate the opportunity to have our police officers be made agents of the Board of Health, just specifically to help us educate the community in the appropriateness and effectiveness for getting through this pandemic. That's about it.
Good summary.
Go ahead, Bo.
I put some time into this, and I realized that people probably fall asleep listening to me at the last meeting, but because I had missed the one before, and I was kind of realizing about it. I think there were a lot of concerns. In the meantime, it was for me anyway, but in the meantime, I've gone in more detail over the example of the Board of Health and Police Enforcement Practical Collaboration documents issued on May 4th that we have on our feeds from the John Scholl Chef Law Enforcement Division. But really the key thing is what's on the back of that, which is a template for what would be any Board of Health in the state of Massachusetts conferring this. It would be the document. And look at that, and also minutes of May 6th, in which it was discussed, where Lori had also presented. And I think the key phrase in that, what Lori said there, is once again, she would like to see the board designate police to handle calls at the lowest level possible. It would give them the authority to act on a civil level rather than criminal. They, in fact, of course, my parentheses, already have all the authority they need to act in a criminal manner, so a designation. So we're looking for getting them on board as agents of public health, as I understand it, to assist in adjudicating and administering, particularly under these reopening phase 1 here in Massachusetts, and assisting the Board of Health and Laurie and all extant public servants are doing this, and we clearly would be overwhelmed by this as it's going. It's only going to get more. So that's my understanding of it so far. Any comments from anyone else to add to that or detract from what I just said?
One thing I would
Mary
like to,
here.
one thing I'd like
Go
to
ahead, Lord.
Well, thank you. One thing I'd like to mention too is that it's my understanding. So one of the newer things that came out with this phase 1 is that you can now meet with more than a grouping of 10 people if you are in an outdoor and unconfined space, meaning your backyard or any open area. And so one of the things that, as an agent of the Board of Health, if somebody calls me and says, you know, there's 15 people over Audra's house, and, you know, what are you going to do about it? That's not something that we don't enforce personal property and what goes on in somebody's personal property. So, and I don't think that the police would either, but so this presenting them and appointing them as agents of the Board of Health, it's just for those areas that are public spaces and businesses where they're where we're concerned about the safety of our residents and those that come to town.
You know, if I could just add, you know, actually you just identified an example of what probably encapsulates my major concerns about just blanket going ahead with this. And I'm tending in favor, but I think the caveat is suppose the people at Audra's house after dark and you know, as it's obvious because there's a little music playing and whoever the officer on duty is, some neighbor thinks that's not appropriate. And so whoever the officer on duty is gets a call. He goes over there and if the noise is too loud and stuff, to take care of that. But that particular officer happens to not be aware of what I just wasn't aware of, the gathering of 10 people is okay. And he starts chastising them or whatever, and inadvertently and unintentionally creating bad public PR, but by not being appropriately informed of that. And I see this as very difficult. This is a difficulty we're all facing. Everyone's talking. I'm talking to people not even from the state of Massachusetts about what is the protocol of enforcement. This is so complicated. That first of all, that's why I emphasized in the minutes before that if once the police stays in close touch with this, and that was my point last meeting, that somehow that we are up to date, that every officer knows and is up to date with what the state regulations are. This could be difficult, you know. So little mistakes are going to be made. So I don't know. Perhaps you get people getting the essence of what I'm speaking to here. Go ahead, somebody.
Oh, I do hear what you're saying. I agree with you that it is important to have a consistent message and that everybody be aware of what is allowed and what is not allowed. I think though, you know, that's also their job, is to be aware of these things. And you know, whether if they're going to respond to a police matter like a noise complaint and there's going to be an issue with whatever there's going to be an issue with, none of that would be made less or more by this appointment, because that would again be them having criminal issues and dealing with things in a criminal manner, in a criminal response. And this is allowing them to lessen that response.
Yeah, I think the emphasis is on the enforcement on the lowest level. And I have no direct experience, and I've had experience, but no knowledge of the fact that I should not trust our police department to make the appropriate decisions, and that any perhaps circumstantial deviation unintended would be minor and readily correctable or wouldn't matter anyway. I just wanted to outline the idea of what were my reservations about it. So when we mentioned in the last meeting, I said, do we have any new feedback from Steve in the police department about the issue since our last meeting?
I did. I spoke to the chief, and he really feels strongly that they can't really help the board in any manner without this, because he doesn't want to be involved in trying to educate people if his only recourse is criminal charges. So, and that's how it stands right now. If there was a situation and where there was a business not complying or whatever the situation may be, and Lori, asked them if they could respond to it because she was unavailable, they have nothing they can do beyond educating other than charging with criminal offenses. And that's not what we want. That's not what anybody here wants. And so, Evan?
Yeah, sorry. I was just trying to flag your attention. I did speak with the chief about 15 minutes before your meeting started. He was on his way to a call regarding people using the playground equipment, even though it is closed. And so he said to me on the way out the door that his main focus for, talking to you folks about the agents of the Board of Health was that he felt that Munson Police should support Lori McCool. He said how much he liked working with Lori and how great of a person she is and health agent, and just didn't want her hanging out there by herself, stretched too thin, and also potentially going into situations alone that may be tricky for one person to handle on their own without the authority that they have. So that was just the last conversation that I had with him. That's really the impetus for his conversation, not really from a desire to overly police things or get involved in one more thing, but to support their colleague that they have in Lori.
Yeah, I second that, and I if I may speak, and I think what's key here is I'm looking over the template from the John Soltis group that we had, that I just said as a broad caveat, I would say in requirement that I would expect that without there being communication board of health on a regular basis and all that's already outlined, but I expect that the Munson Police Department and the leadership of Steve Pavlovsky would independently taking on this responsibility, just as we do independently, take on responsibility of staying up with the ever-changing state regulations in this regard to assist them in knowing what they're doing. Simply put, I think that's enough. That's what I would expect. I don't know that we need sworn statements from every single officer, but certainly from Steve Pavlovsky, I would hope that this is an added responsibility if we give it to them. And in order, just like us, in order to administrate it correctly, we need to stay abreast of the state regulations and mandates, which are dynamic and changing day, week to week, certainly. So I think that's it for me on this issue. That's my perspective.
Okay, and Bo, I just wanted to remind you too that built into this is the caveat that we can rescind this at any time that we feel is necessary. And if we don't rescind it, it ends when the state of emergency pertaining to COVID-19 ends on its own
And
right. And they are
Yeah.
required to report to us within 2 days of any responses that they have. So, you know, there is built into it the, you know, us monitoring and being aware of what's going on.
I want
It's
to
not
ask,
a blank check.
yeah, and last thing, specifically on the example that we had from that COVID-19 for cops, you know, a nice title, Board of Health and Police Enforcement on the issue May 4th. It had on the backside is a template of law enforcement convention saying, "Dear Chief, name, I'm the director, whatever, Board of Health," conferring upon all that. And I was, well, no, I was going to say, I had that question. I noticed there. It said, until rescinded by the Board of Health. That's one of my questions. But so will we as Board of Health adopt that particular template, fill in the blanks, or do we have something else or a variation we want to have on our records of what it is that we were approving?
For what our conversations have been, this template seems to cover our concerns as far as like the time limit and the regulations that they said, you know, they agree to consult with us, be guided by the regulations and the report in 2 days. It cites the GL. I think there's not much anything that I can think of it from all of our conversations to add to that. So I don't see why we wouldn't just use that template instead of redesigning the wheel.
I think it's good pursuant to our discussion today at this meeting. And it's just a matter of, you know, kind of humorous aside, when for instance, I was heavily involved when the enforcement came down from environmental state on floor drains. And I noticed that a number of towns had just taken the template that the state offered and plugged it into their minutes, and it read just like this: I am the director of, parentheses, Town City Board of Health, and dear Chief, name, and they didn't even fill it in with the correct information. So I think we do this, we want to at least do that and make it sure it's specific to the town of Munson and the correct people.
If we do it, I will make sure that I put in the correct names and dates and titles. I'm assuming that most of the people here are here for this purpose, so.
Mary's here. We would like to say something as a member of the Board of Health.
Sure, go ahead.
I think it's sad that Chief isn't here. Kind of cool that he goes out and takes calls like that. Good for him. I do not think this is necessary. I do not believe for 1 second that the support is there in our town. You want to talk about education? That's our job. We can get the word out. Most people know because it's all that's on TV. All of the numbers have been going down. I think that by doing this, and if somebody says, you know, oh, we can stop it when we want, well, why don't we just have it on the back burner and we can start it if we want? I understand Lori's getting calls and you're busy, and I get that, but part of that job is when there is a crisis. I don't think the police going to having this power is going to help if they go to a situation, because if a person goes into a store and it says you cannot come in here without one, at that point they're trespassing. So it's a police issue anyway, and I think the trust that the people have been building in the police in our town is great. This is not going to help the situation, and that's the census of the people in the town who I have spoke with. They're not for it, and it doesn't make sense. We don't have these kind of numbers that people are talking about. Our numbers are so small. We have a handful of sick people in town now. I understand that people are scared. And when you wear your mask, when you're taking it on and off your face, you're using your hands. People aren't washing them. When they put them back on, you may as well lick your hands and everything you touched. So to me, it doesn't make sense, but I think as a matter of people's rights, it's wrong. And I think it has a bad reflection on everybody. I think we can handle this. And instead of saying, here, the governor gave us the power to do it, how about we say, the governor's given us the power to do this, but we don't think it's necessary because we have such great people in this town and everything's good. And that's all I have to say about that.
I'll get right back on that for a second. The state has given the police authority already to, in more egregious situations such as a retail, because it is clear Baker's administrative executive order that retail business may refuse entry to a customer. So you're right, Mary, that kind of egregious situation take care of. One of the aspects I think is, let's say, like the one I brought up before about initially it's a noise complaint. But then it turns out that really it's not, and police are aware of the situation. Go down there, and there's 20 young folks commingling, as I think you and I and everyone listening would agree that they shouldn't be. And they have to walk away because they have no authority from us to say, like, okay, you guys, and education is it. And I would want, Mary's right, I would want to put that in this document if it is voted on, that there is, education is the first role, and that there is that authority given by the state, and it hasn't happened yet anywhere that I know of ability to find people violating the distancing rules and gathering rules and such with $300 fine. But I tend to have faith in the department about getting, as I said before, affidavit from each and every individual that they'll abide by that. I think we could possibly go ahead, if this document is well worded, and resend if necessary, rather than nail it around as Mary suggested, although I do appreciate that perspective, believe me. I would not have been so long-winded or proactive about this if I didn't. But Laurie needs help. Situation's only going to get more complicated. I do have faith in just the information that's already out there, as Mary pointed out, and readily available. And that people, for the most part, as we observe, way more than the most part, people have discovered things that, and paid attention to things that they just didn't before. One of those small silver linings to this disaster. But I think education, we get something in there. This is not only at the civil level, but education is the first level when an officer wants to respond to any situation, and perhaps and hopefully never need to go any further. Plus the very fact of showing up, well, that will antagonize some people, as will always be the case. But if it's handled properly, it needn't be so. Okay, over and out.
All right, thank you, Mary. Thank you, Bo. Lori, do you want to field questions? Evan, we can have Evan mediate. I'm assuming that's why everybody is on. Either that or they're really excited to hear what your updates are.
Yeah.
So everybody, if anybody has a question and wants to ask a question, just please use the raise your hand tool, and Evan will do whatever he does to select you and unmute you.
Yeah, and if you're calling on just a regular phone and you want to ask a question, you dial *9. That will raise your hand. If you're on the computer, it is an option for you either down the bottom, or when you click participants, it'll say raise hand at the bottom. And I will unmute you. You can ask your questions and I can re-mute you for the answer. Okay. Trying to unmute you. Rose Roswitha.
It's
we'll do
okay,
you.
just
Oh,
just
there
say
you are.
Rose.
Okay, Rose, thanks. I got you unmuted.
Thank you. So I have a question about the mask. If you're not able to wear a mask for medical reasons, and you have a letter from your doctor stating that, in the order from the governor, it states that if you are not able to wear a mask for medical purposes, you're still allowed to have the advantage to go to a store. Or are we saying if that person is not able to wear a mask for medical reasons, is not allowed to go in that store?
No, you're correct. If you have a medical reason, you don't even have to show any verification that you have a medical reason. All you have to do is state that you have one, and that would allow you to move forward without having a mask on. That's correct. It wouldn't be, we cannot enforce someone to wear a mask who who's medically cannot wear one for those medical reasons.
Yes, and
Does that mean that if the store says you can't come in without a mask, are they accepting that it's the store's rule? This is Mary, sorry.
Yeah, yeah, Laura, I mean, not to talk over you, Laura, if you want to take that, but my understanding, I mean, you can't discriminate against somebody with a medical condition. They still have to have access to grocery stores and pharmacies. So but they can be refused entry if they're not wearing a mask, not for medical purposes.
I could add to that because I have the original document right in front of me, page 2. Governor Baker's order requiring face coverings in public places for social distancing is not possible. On the second page, 6th paragraph, a person who declines to wear a mask or cloth face covering because of a medical condition shall not be required to produce documentation verifying this condition. End of sentence.
Okay, thank you
That's
both.
correct.
Rose, does that answer your question?
so my husband is actually the one that has the medical condition, and he was in a store without a mask and told him that he can't wear a mask. And somebody in the store called the police on him. So he then had to explain why he's not wearing a mask. But the whole point is that it's just really frustrating for somebody who can't wear a mask and other people telling him he's a killer because he's not wearing a mask.
Yeah, I totally understand your frustration because it does happen, and part of what we're hoping to do with both myself and allowing the police to be part of the Board of Health is to educate our businesses and to educate other members of Munson so that this doesn't happen to you again.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're hoping for. And it's going to take time. People don't understand it. First of all, you shouldn't wear a mask. Now you should wear a mask. So it gets confusing for sure. And as we move along with new protocols for various businesses and maybe even lessening protocol as we move forward, it's just going to be a continuous educational thing that we need to move forward and just hope that we can get all residents in the town of Munson to understand, why some people cannot wear a mask. So yeah, hopefully we'll get to that point.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Rose.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, moving on to next question is, I don't have a name, but it's phone number ends in 3539. You are unmuted.
Hi, can you
Hi.
please give us your name for the minutes, please?
Yep, the name is Billy Dart, Route 32 Barbershop on Main Street.
Hi, Bill, go ahead.
Hi. I have a couple questions. One is, can the local Board of Health members take on some of Lori's duties attending to these tasks in town? Is that possible? Or is it just Lori that goes around?
No, that's.
I'm sorry, say the question again. Yeah, we got some little cell phone. Go ahead.
Okay. My question is the local Board of Health members, because there seems to be multiple Board of Health members that are local, can they go out and handle some of the tasks that Inspector Lori comes into town to help, you know, ease the burden of her always rushing out here? In other words, does the Board of Health have the authority to do what Lori does?
So, you know, Audra, Mary, and Bo, I think what he's asking is if for some reason I can't make it out, can you as a board member also fill that position?
Correct.
We do apparently have the authority.
Okay.
That seems like a better first step than going to the police. That's a really good idea.
I agree. One thing about the police is, I mean, and don't get me wrong, because I'm all about the community and safety first. But I think some people out there might get the wrong idea, and the police, the good men and women of the police department, they are our community. They're an enrooted part of our community, and I don't know if it'd be a good thing to put pressure on them to go out there and do this when the Board of Health can do it. And I also wonder, I mean, I think you can vote this in even at the next meeting or call a meeting to vote this in if it chooses to go that way. But have you considered an alternative possible solution, such as before we go to the route of the police department, have we considered maybe forming a committee and bringing a campaign about where, and it ties right into the education, but we can get involved and maybe put a banner across Main Street promoting, you know, in consideration for your neighbors, please wear the mask, you know.
I nominate you.
Out of respect for your neighbors in our community, we encourage you to wear the mask. I think that might go a lot further. I mean, when I wear a mask, when I go out and I do wear a mask, and I do wear a mask, I don't do it because I'm comfortable with it, because I'm not. What I do, the only reason I do it is out of consideration for my neighbors in the community, and no matter what town I'm in, wherever I go, I do it out of respect of other people. Because the last thing I want to do, and I'm sure many of our residents of Munson want to do, is make our neighbors, you know, uncomfortable. So I think promoting might be a more positive approach, more education, and I think if you put it together a committee, I'm thinking by the end of the weekend we could have a banner up. We can come up, put a good team together, and come up with good positive solutions. And then if that doesn't work, then you always have this step to empower the police department. I just think that with all of everything going on in the news, people are frustrated. They've been locked up in their homes. They want to get out. I think empowering the police to take action, because at first it might be education. And if it's limited to that, that's fine. But I think what would happen is it might go further than that. I just think we can get further with sugar and spice. That's what I have to say. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Very good.
Thanks, Bill. Evan, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm just curious. I'm listening to all the comments, and it's come up a number of times how many people are wearing masks, and the number of calls and the compliance of the residents of Munson. Just wondering if somebody on the call could speak to the number of calls that we've got, what they were about, and how they were resolved.
Lori, do you have that information readily available? I mean, I know a
No.
lot of it.
I don't. I mean, you should see my little book from where I go from town to town, and you know, a lot of it. I mean, I do get a lot of phone calls for various reasons, and whether it's for wearing a mask or for a business that is open that shouldn't be open, or they saw somebody in another store. And so just I think what Billy had said is education is never a bad thing. And so, being able to really get information out to the public is always positive. But I think part of having to do that in conjunction with having the police be part of the Board of Health would just be, as we move through these phases, and the information just constantly changes. So as we move through these phases, whether it's, responding to a mask or responding to a business or whatever the case might be, it's just, I think it just allows for, I don't want to say it's the Board of Health Authority, but I don't think the police should come across as being more authoritative than anything. But I just feel a combination of both of them would probably be the best result, because I don't know that, I mean, as community personnel and having a committee to educate the public, hopefully will lessen the requirements for myself or anybody else to respond to an incident, but just to be able to have that response action available is a part of that whole picture. So I don't know that one without the other, but both together would probably be the most effective. But we've had, back to your point, Evan, yeah, so there's phone calls, consistently, and I know that Autumn gets some on the phone. I think Audra and other people get, because they know you're the Board of Health, put complaints in that way as well. So they come from all different places. So it's hard to say how many we've responded to, but we've done quite a bit, I would say, maybe.
Is it like 10 or 50 or 100 or 1,000?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I mean, it's so hard to put a number on it, but at least a couple dozen anyway.
Over what period of time?
I mean, I'm making guesses, but I'd say over the past couple of weeks since this mask thing went into effect.
So that'd be less than one a day?
Probably a couple of, if you wanted to put it over 7 days, probably something like that. So it wouldn't be that the police would be responding, here and there and all over the place, and it's not going to be for private property. It would just be for an incident. If, even if the woman that was on, that I spoke to just before, Rose, was it? So if she has another incident, that the police can respond and explain to the business that no, he does have a medical reason, and you need to allow him to come into the store. So those are the positive things that can also occur than having Rose and her husband feel like they've just been kicked out of a store and can't finish their grocery shopping or whatever, wherever they were.
But now Rose just got educated, so Rose knows that she can say, I was on the phone with the board for the Board of Health meeting, and this is how that rule goes. She can even print it up, the rule, the law, mandate, and she can hand it to people as she explains it to them. They can look at it, no problem. Somebody else just passed on a little education. Go Rose.
Yeah, but I don't know that we should require, and sure, she could do that if she wants, but there's always going to be, and there may be somebody else that wasn't on the meeting that doesn't know what they're doing, and just so, if we can just do it to start out with, and if the police find that, and the Board of Health finds that it's really not anything that we need to do, then we can rescind it. I'd rather do it this way than the other way, where it gets out of hand, and then all of a sudden we have to go back the other way. So my
I wouldn't consider one phone call a day anywhere near out of hand.
No, and that's what I'm saying.
So can I ask a question? Because I keep hearing this one phone call a day. That's Lori's anecdotal information, right? That's not from dispatch. That's not from my office or all the other offices that are fielding calls. Calls that take multiple days and time out of our schedule to follow up on. Lori, how many hours a week does the town of Munson pay you to work in the town of Munson?
5.
5 hours. So how long would you say each call takes you?
Oh, probably at least a half an hour. That's just half an hour maybe, but I got to find the numbers. I've got to look online for the business number. I've got to make the phone call. I got to return the phone call. I got to call back the complainant. I got to call back the business. So probably close to an hour.
Right. And so how many, do you do only this or do you do other things?
I do other things. Yeah.
Right. So the question before the Board of Health is two-part. One, it's I guess we're debating the validity of masks, but the governor has issued an order. That order is considered law since it was done under executive powers during a state of emergency. So the Board of Health has to enforce that regulation. So if you don't have the staffing to do it, we need to look at other alternatives. And I don't believe that, you know, imbuing power onto or authorizing members of the Board of Health to just go all over town when they have other things to do. I know Audra is a full-time employee of the town of Munson. Bo is a full-time nurse, I believe. So you need to have some other mechanism so that
I have
people,
plenty of time that I would be willing to do that. Absolutely. I love to educate people. It's my job.
okay, and so you'll issue fines when that's necessary?
I will what?
Will you issue
I
fines
will
when it's
educate.
necessary?
I
No,
will
that wasn't the
educate
question I
people.
asked, because the governor's order,
If it was necessary, if I felt it was necessary and it couldn't be dealt with through education, yes, I would.
okay, and how do you do that?
I'm sure there's a handbook out there.
No, but there's a ticketing book, right? And so do you have that? Does anybody have that?
See, we
that-
haven't
just-
even had to use it. Nobody even knows where it is. That's pretty great.
Therein
No.
lies the other problem, is that the Board of Health has never been set up to issue the tickets that they have the authority to issue. Lori has the ability to issue civil tickets on many topics, not just this, and she has never been given a ticket book. We have no background information of like where the funds go, how do they pay it, all that. None of that infrastructure is set up at this time.
So shouldn't we have that set up and deal with it first before we go to the police?
Yeah, see, there's no precedent for this. And when we deal with, say, floor drain issues, et cetera, it is done on a slower basis, not face-to-face. People have to come to the meeting. It's decided on as a board. We vote on it. We issue fines, and then we usually rescind them when there's compliance. So what we're used to dealing with, nothing like this. And I'm not in favor of dealing with it like that. It's just all not going to happen. But and that's why perhaps the observations of the police, if we knew it was going to be handled appropriately, is appropriate. When comment G4 is that Billy, what kind of issues someone's going to have in the bill? Let's say it is a barber shop, someone comes in. And we're discussing that. What made me aware of is I'm not in favor of police or anyone else going out and getting heavy on person for simply not wearing a mask. That's just too small. We have to rely on education and people's stuff. But if a business owner has really wants someone to wear a mask at 1-to-1 in a place, or like 3 or 4 people come in behind and say, geez, it's cold outside, or it's too hot and I don't want to be there. And that business person, he's the only one who's going to know, because I don't want 4 people in this place and it's against the regulations. What does that person do then? That's when I think the enforcement issue comes up. And again, as the police are so used to doing, and so often is handled appropriately, just simply by showing up, the problem dissolves right in front of them, usually. That's the level at which I'd be hopeful for. Go ahead.
Do you have any other hands raised, Evan?
Nope, no other hands.
Okay, Bo, in hearing your input, I have to add a sentence in here where it says, as agents, you will be able to engage in all public outreach, enforcement, and mitigation activities that our existing staff can perform. The first and foremost reaction, you want to add something like first and foremost reaction will be to educate?
Yes,
Okay, does that?
I'd almost like to put in that there'll be no enforcement. I mean, such as all three of us members of. I just want to point out too that people come on. I bump into people all the time who think that members of the Board of Health are like, like in Framingham or something, where it's a permanent job and they get salaries and benefits. This is totally volunteer because we want to. We have, anyway, just to make that part clear. That in the, as agents in the wording of a proposed or possible law enforcement interventions document, I'd almost like to see that there would be no enforcement of just not wearing a mask, but there would be enforcement of the more important aspects, exactly how it has been documented through the tons of research I've done is out there. It is through group gatherings of more than a couple of people who are in proximity to each other. That's what we want to enforce. I can't think of anything else we want to enforce, actually. So if we could, I'd almost want to just take it out of the language, and I think that's part of our problem here, that we go around doing something that seems sort of petty and a little bit too intrusive to people. Say, you must put that mask on, even though, you're 8 feet apart, 12 feet, 20 feet apart from people, whatever. And any incident that came up, say at Adams, where some person is really a problem in that regard, well, the issue is going to be something the police can enforce anyway. It's going to be disorderly conduct, disturbing the peace, and assaultive language or something, so I'm not sure how we can pick that out, but that's my perspective anyway on that. I don't know. Any ideas?
To me, I come back to the line in it that they will be, we can even change the wording a little bit where it says the police department agrees to consult with the Board of Health. We can put specifically Lori in there so that their response is based on what Lori, so they're responding in the same way that Lori would respond to a situation. So it would be that in this role, the police department agrees to consult with health agent Lori McCool and to be guided by the Munson Board of Health's regulations during public health activities. Do you feel that putting that in there and having Lori have strict oversight of the response, how do you feel about that?
Actually, that if such a thing were possible, I mean, Laura would be getting a phone call anyway from somebody, but she wouldn't have to go through all the callbacks, this and that, and everything else. But if it were so that in any incidents where the police were involved, having shown up or not shown up yet, maybe even more ideally, but ready to show up, had direct one-to-one real-time contact with Lori or any one of us, which would be readily make our information. As Mary said, she'd be available to the police call her, and we all would trust each other to make the right advice to that officer who's on the scene or about to be. And he calls and says, what do you want me to do? What would you like to see me do? That would be absolutely ideal. That would make it.
I would only do that if this wasn't enforced. I would do that. I wouldn't do that if this were enforced, no. And it seems like, too, if they're going to call Lori, doesn't that defeat the whole purpose of taking the weight off Lori?
Hey, Audra, can I make a suggestion?
Certainly.
I think you should let Mary do it. I think you should, we can work with the PD to get a ticket book, obviously as a last resort. And I think we should let, Mary seems perfectly willing to do it. So I would let her receive the calls via either my office, the police, or Autumn. And then, you know, give that a week and see how that goes.
If I'm available, I'd be willing to do it too. But we can't all be available all the time. But it would be the first step before action was taken by our designees. Something along this line could work, I think.
So Mary, is that something that you want to take on? Because I definitely, I'm overwhelmed with my full-time job and the amount of time I put into these responses as it is.
I have a full-time job also, but my kids are all grown up, and I feel strongly enough about this that, yeah, I think I'm a good person to do it, because I really do like to educate people and not have things be a problem. And by not doing this collaboration, I think that's a wonderful solution. Evan, you sure is smart.
So Mary, here's my concern.
I get that from time to time. I do have one thing though, just from a town perspective, I think we do need to track the number of calls. We don't necessarily need to track the person's name, but we probably need to track the call and what the call was in reference to, just for Board of Health purposes, liability and such like that, much like we do with everything else. I mean, we do that with trash, we do that with everything.
Yeah, Mary, part of my concern is that through all of these conversations, you've expressed that you don't feel like masks are necessary. You don't think that it's as bad as anything else. You don't think we should be telling people that they have to wear masks.
Oh, can you put your mute on? I can't hear Audra, please.
I'll mute them.
Thank you.
Just remind me to take them off, okay?
Okay. And I'm not faulting you for having a different opinion from everybody else, but this is what we're tasked in enforcing. As Board of Health members, whether we agree with what the governor is saying or not, we are tasked in enforcing this. And I just want to make sure that you feel that you can adequately do that, even if it's not in line with what you personally view is right or wrong for the situation.
I kind of do I take offense to the way you're saying that. And Evan, I really feel like you just said that to poke me. And I made clear that I would do it. I've also made quite clear that I do believe in the education part first.
Wait, Mary, I said what to poke you?
When you threw that out there, Evan, that you had the idea, I got the definite feeling that you were doing it just to poke at me.
No, Mary, I did not. You said you were willing.
This isn't the time or place. I'm sure we should discuss this later, but I don't appreciate the way that was just handled.
You raised it, and then you just said I was smart. So I'm very confused at how to take that. You said
I was being sarcastic right back to you, Evan. I don't appreciate the way you just handled that. I don't think it was appropriate at all, and I take great offense to your tone in saying it.
Okay, so here's what happened, just to be clear for the record. You said you wanted to do it. I thought about it.
Evan,
I read the
I
document.
understand for the record what happened. You can't throw your tone in there. And we really should talk about this later. I just wanted on record that I did not like your tone at all. I do understand what it is. I am not stupid. I said that I would do it once, and I will gladly do it. And I am definitely pro-education, which is supposed to be the whole point.
Right. I'm pretty sure that's what I said and thought it was a good idea, and that was the whole thing. So I'm sorry if you read a tone into that. There was no tone. I think it was a great middle ground solution to move this issue forward. Thanks.
And it is that.
Mary, I'm not trying to offend you in any way. I'm strictly, as the chair of the board, want to make sure that this is something that you're thoroughly thinking through and that you feel that you can fairly I mean, I'm just asking because you have said that you do not agree with a lot of this. And I don't want you to be put into a place where you are now responsible for enforcing things that you do not believe in. That's all I'm asking. I'm just making sure that you've thought that through before we approve you to take this extra duty on.
I will follow the law.
And that's all we can ask. All right. Bo, I am gonna make a
Hold
motion.
on, I gotta unmute Bo. Nobody
Oh, that's
reminded
right.
me.
Sorry, I didn't remind you to unmute Bo.
Okay, Bo's unmuted.
Bo, if you were trying to talk anytime in the last 3 minutes, we muted you.
No,
Sorry.
just this moment, I was, I did, I missed a little bit because of phone connection and a little distraction came up here apart from the meeting, but, in regard to Mary or any one of us, and I also offered to be available for contact by phone. It is my profession to be on call, be called, and things would be taken care of on a phone 24/7 at times in my career. And so it's not unusual to be consulted as, as a professional. Oh, well, it's in Board of Health. I'm willing to do it. I mean, if I'm not available, I don't answer the phone. But my perspective on that, as far as myself or Mary, is I think our best role, just as Mary originally spoke to very early on in the meeting about this issue we're discussing, that our role should be education. So I would want to be called for education and to provide guidance. And I think that's what Mary or myself or one of us on the board should do and restrict ourselves to. And if the issue goes beyond that, then let the agents who are already empowered to do so take care of it. I don't see a reason why this should really get too much more complicated beyond here. But that's my perspective. I'd be willing, and maybe Mary even more willing, if our role was to answer that call, say from the police officer or whoever we wanted to give them the up-to-date information on what was and wasn't, our mandates from the state and how they applied the situation at hand. That's how I'd like to see it all done. Go ahead.
Okay, I don't think, because it's not an authority that's outside of our existing authorities, I don't think we need to actually make a motion of any sort. I think that Autumn and Mary and Lori, do you have anything how you would want to handle this logistically?
I'd be willing to, do a email back and forth as a group if we want to discuss, maybe we can each come up with an idea and then submit what we think and then collaborate with them all together.
I think that would.
Anyone else? In the meantime, regardless of the empowerment of our authorities, the local police, Laurie should be feel free to call us. Even Audra, I mean, you can multitask. You could be working on your stuff, and Laurie calls up. Maybe she answers. Geez, this call here. What do you think? Or maybe you just answer this 1 or 2 calls for me. Or same for me. If I can be reached, I'll do it. And I'm sure Mary said she would too. We could possibly, in a week's interim time, give this a shot. And just try to be available as much as we can individually. Laurie, call upon us at any time if you can get us and we're available. And we try to cut the load on Laurie that way up front. Meanwhile, refine the language of our possible, conference of authority here. And work on this as Mary just suggested over the next week. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do. I have been answering calls. I talk to Lori more frequently than she probably wants, and but I think that as long as we're giving a consistent message and we're responding in a consistent manner and everything is being tracked. We can't communicate over email. It's an open meeting law violation, even for something as small as that. So I think that we would just have to decide in this meeting now how we're going to move forward with it, whether we have Autumn contact Lori and then Lori kind of disseminate the calls to Mary as you need the backup, or Lori, what would, because the whole purpose of this is to alleviate stress from you and to assist you in handling this volume. So how would that best work for you?
If I could be eliminated as the middleman, it would be a lot less stressful for me. You know, just a few of the phone calls that I've had, you know, with you or even with Autumn or with the chief or whoever, when somebody makes a complaint to somebody and then it comes to me and then I go to the person and I got to go back to the person that told me about the complaint. I mean, those are the things that take a lot of time back and forth. So I would say if, you know, however we want to handle it, whoever's going to be the person taking the complaint, it just goes directly to that. So there's not all this conversation with a person in between, and then the stories get all, you know, you had talked to, you know, somebody talks to somebody that was told they can't wear a mask. I called the business. I didn't talk to the person that didn't wear the mask, you know, so it just gets really confusing. So I think for me, if we want to try this out for a while, is just eliminate me as the middleman and just go directly to, you know, the board members if the board members want to handle, and that they would have to follow through with that one situation, because when we start getting too many people calling or saying, then that gets a little frustrating for either the business or the person that's complaining. So I want to make it as simple as possible for the person that's complaining and to make it as streamlined to whoever you have to speak to resolve that complaint.
Okay, so would it be fair to say 1 or 2 calls a day? Anything over that, you know, we'll expect you to take 1 call or 2 calls. Anything that's over a fair amount for your load, then those calls, the overflow would come between Bo and I.
Well, you know, it depends. I mean, there's days that are, most days I wake up and say, oh, look, there's nothing on my schedule except for 4 meetings. And then my day ends up being like on the phone. And even at night, my husband gets to the point like, Lori, just don't answer it. You know, so, you know, I don't know. I'm just trying to think this through as I'm sitting here thinking I'm just really tired.
Well, how about anything over 1 phone call a day? You know, 1, if there's none, there's none. But if there's 1, but if there happens to be a day that we get a second one, then that's when the overflow would go to Bo or I. That seems very reasonable to me.
Well, it just depends on where the calls are coming from. So I might get a phone call from me directly, but then the police aren't going to know that I got that 1 phone call. Autumn's not going to know that I already got that 1 phone call, or Evan or somebody won't know that I got that 1. So, you know, unless it goes to Autumn and then she can just call.
Yeah, I think that for consistency and for ease, because Lori keeping track of like, oh, nope, there's my 1 that I got to do. Now I got to bounce everything else here. And let's just everything. And I've spoken to PD already that all calls go through Autumn. So when there's a call that comes in, they dispatch notifies Autumn, and then she, if it's something that she can answer, she'll answer it. Otherwise, she sends it to Lori. But instead of doing that, she'll send it to Mary. Mary, you have Bo. If there's, you know, overflow, if you need somebody else to help you, you have Bo. Yeah, you have me. I just don't want to be the one responsible for all of it. I mean, and then if there's a situation that you're in that you can't handle and you need somebody with more, you know, I guess Lori would be the.
I'm always here. I don't want to feel like I'm trying to shirk my responsibilities as the inspector here. You know, personally, I think that's my responsibility, and I should do what I can to get my work done. You know, so I just don't want to be. Say, oh, well, she just wants to get rid of everything. And I don't. I mean, I've been doing this job for 30 years now in town. So it's, you know.
So Mary, can you make sure that Autumn has all of your most up-to-date, I know she's got your email, but I'm not sure if she has your up-to-date best, your like cell phone number, and all that. And then, do you want me to send you like a spreadsheet for tracking? How's that gonna work best for you?
That'd be great.
Okay. Okay, and then we'll get Chief to get the ticket book and get that to you so that you have that if needed. Anything, do you have any questions or concerns on it?
I'm all set.
Yeah, and I want to be available and assist there as well. So for telephone consult and between us and Mary and me and Autumn and me and everybody, I want to make sure I'm available. So I'll update contact and 24 hours a day. I don't care if I have to sleep. I turn everything off anyway if it's critical. I keep sleeping, so I'm used to this. So go ahead.
Oh, mute, sorry. Okay, so we'll go forward with that and we'll see how that works out for the week. And we'll do Autumn, you can channel calls to Mary, and then if Mary needs, can't respond to something, she can go to Bo, she can go to me, and then if we need additional support, we will always have Lori to fall back with as well.
And we still have Munson PD if it looks like it's that kind of situation and they don't know about it yet.
They won't respond unless it's criminal. If we don't do this.
That's what I mean. If a violation's not appropriate for us, we may be fielding the call. And so we can either advise to that extent or we could do it ourselves, you know. But anyway, just threw that in for follow-up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Then that's it on that topic for tonight. Lori, do you want to do your regular updates?
I mean, it's just been, you know, my updates right now, aside from just the normal everyday stuff at the town hall, and the, you know, the septic stuff is still coming through and the plan reviews are still coming through. You know, people are still looking for, you know, doing, you know, different permits for various things that Autumn and I are working on. But I would say, you know, 99% of it is just responding to a lot of phone calls about, like I think I said earlier, a lot of phone calls about people wondering where in this process can their business open, because, you know, the Board of Health, we're normally responsible for those businesses that we permit, but throughout this whole COVID thing, we are now responsible through the whole opening of Massachusetts again. So all these different businesses are required at different phases to put together their protocol. There's certain industry protocol that you'll see online that they have to follow. The Board of Health doesn't have to inspect businesses as they open to the phases that they're allowed to open. But in the event that we do get a complaint, then the Board of Health is required to respond to that complaint, even if it's not a business that we would normally permit. So it could be any business that we would have to respond to, and we would have to go in to make sure that they had followed those guidelines and had done all of those precautions that the businesses have to do in order for them to reopen in their phases. So whether it's, you know, educating their employees, having the self-certification paperwork together, all that sort of stuff. So that's kind of what, and just the various meetings all week with DPH and with infectious disease on, you know, all the different protocols and changes on how to handle people that call into a business that are either positive or have been in contact with somebody that's positive or not sure, and the whole contact tracing sort of thing. So working with Angela on some of that. And so there's all pretty much 99% of what I'm doing is just the pandemic stuff. But too many details to get into all the, everything that's been going on, so I'd rather not.
Okay, sounds good. Evan, any updates from Dan Higgins?
Did email him again this week, and he said that he's still working on it. I did tell him that we have an impending town meeting and no contract, and that's going to get squirrely. So if I don't see anything from them by tomorrow, I'll have to reach out again and tell them that the board's going to have to reassess any decision that they've made, because we still have no contract heading into fiscal 21.
Okay.
You know, something I'd like to see, and I'm sure many people would, is some resumption of some sort of bulky pickup. I understood, and I didn't understand why not, but I recently got the information that their total tonnage apparently seemed to be so accelerated due to the way things are being done that they were over the top with that. But I'd like to see that monitored and get some data back from them. What is the tonnage, and let's get some data going so we will know when is appropriate or not appropriate to press them for more services.
I agree, Bo. I think that's going to be the key. And he was supposed to be giving me data on that, which I haven't seen yet. So when I reach back out and have that conversation, I'll ask for the data so that we can see if we're if enough people have gone back to work to reduce our tonnage and then allow us to resume the bulky stuff, because that's
at least on some terms, and I appreciate that following up on it. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think that for us, we've seen a spike in mattress dumping, which we hadn't seen in quite a long time. So I think that's
it is.
The bulky elimination.
Unintended effect. We're going to see it.
Yep, I agree. So I will ask for that information when I speak with him.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have anything else? I know, Lori, you and I had, and I just wanted to kind of say this because it goes back to what Bill was saying about education. And Lori and I had a conversation earlier this week, and she said it just so well that we really just, in talking about businesses in town, and nobody really, like, everybody's, when do I open? What can I do? What can't I do? It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. And we just want our businesses in town to know that we're here as a resource for them. So Lori had talked about, just stopping in and letting them know, we're here. If you have questions, you need guidance, you have issues, that, we're not here. We don't want to be here as enforcement. We want to be here as assistance and as guidance. So I had talked to Lori about kind of helping her in starting to go in and, just touch base with some of the business owners, just the business owners that we, if they need any assistance, and just let them know that they have us as a resource. So that community education is definitely important.
I had to write a curriculum for my program that I do, and it's all about COVID-19 and safety from one end to the other. So I got that covered.
Could you share that with me, Mary?
I sure can.
That'd be awesome. I'd appreciate that. I like reading different perspectives on education and finding different things when because it's not a one size fits all.
It's boring. It's really just about sanitation.
This is the Board of Health, Mary. We're all about sanitation.
There you go.
All right, Lori, anything else for you? Okay. Autumn, did you have anything to add?
I sent along, I didn't know if anyone had been able to review the minutes from May 6th.
Oh, minutes, I do have.
I did.
I have that written right here, minutes.
And one thing too, Audra, I was on mute when I thought I was talking, but one thing I was going to ask is, I was wondering if we need to still meet once a week. If that's something that the board wants to consider, maybe going to twice a week and seeing how things go from there.
Every other week.
Yeah.
I'm good with going to every other week. Mary, are you good with this test?
I feel like if people are still concerned and we got this new project going on, that maybe we should stick to once a week until we have our footing.
I agree with that right now. I will say, I think we should meet next week because of the particular issues we've just discussed. And for a tighter follow-up, and then consider that question at the next meeting in a week.
I agree with that.
Okay, so we'll make no changes to our current meeting schedule.
I make a motion, we stick to current Borough of Health once a week virtual meetings.
I'll second it.
Oh, okay. Bo, you want to vote?
Yes, I'm in favor. Next week we meet.
Okay. Mary?
Yeah, next week.
Okay. Audra votes yes. We can continue to meet weekly. And as far as anything else, Autumn, was there anything else that you had? The minutes, sorry, yes, sorry, that was what you had asked. So, Mary and Bo, did you read the 5-6 minutes, May 6 minutes?
Mary did.
I'm wondering if I was there. I thought I was, but my name's not at the top of the letterhead there. But if my vote is accepted, I vote to accept it.
Well, we need a motion. If one of you wants to make a motion to approve the 6 minutes.
Is that the May 6th?
Yep.
May 6th, Board of Health, Zoom meeting. Yeah, I make a motion to accept the minutes as written and presented for May 6th meeting of the Board of Health.
Okay. I'll second. Any discussion? All right, Mary, your vote?
Yeah.
Bo, your vote?
Yes.
I vote yes. Minutes are approved as presented, Autumn.
Hey, Audra,
Yes.
can I talk about the senior parade before you get off?
Yes.
Okay. Is now a good time, or would you like to do?
No, I think now is a great time, and I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot to put that on my list.
I have it on my list. So I was approached by the school principal, Bill Metzger from the high school, and Scott Malo, who is a member of a committee that's trying to put together graduation things for the class of 2020. And what they are requesting to do, and I want to make sure I'm going to just check my phone here because I want to make sure I get the date and time right. I believe it's June 5th. They're looking to do a parade for the senior class. Yeah, June 5th at 6 p.m. would be a parade for the senior class. How it would work is the seniors would meet at the high school in their vehicles, shepherded by the school officials. Excuse me. And then they would travel through downtown. Their intent is to have people come out and cheer for them and celebrate their hard work. They have stated that they would do whatever the board thought as far as social distancing is needed. And, obviously the masks and all of that stuff. And so going back and forth, I did talk to them about, we could potentially put out cones every, say, 10 feet where, families could, congregate, or, one person per 6 feet, or however you wanted to flash that out. Much like they did, like New York City has the circles and things like that. So, we could do any of that to try to make that happen if the board is in agreement with this. And then, it's really just trying to get some celebratory thing going for the kids that are graduating this year.
I think it's a great idea. And I would say if we just say, please follow the regulations, blah, 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 and trust on them to do it. And if we have to call, be a part of the driving through and just remind people, but I don't think doing cones and all that is necessary.
Are they at all open to other alternatives, like maybe people drive past the seniors or anything like that?
I did not respond to Bill Metzger in time to answer his question, and Scott Melo did not respond to me in time to answer my question. So we're in a little bit of a question hole there.
Another reason to meet next week, so we can consider that.
I think that they would need an answer probably this week for planning purposes, would be my guess. Lori, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think as far as planning, I think we do probably need to make a decision tonight, but I think the more we can put out there for people to comply with, the better. So it just makes it very clear on what's going to be expected from them. So I think, yeah.
So Lori, just to speak to that, I'm sorry to cut you off. I did hear from them that they had intended to put out a notification that specifies all of the things that you would want to see, the distancing, the masks, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, maybe that's something that the board could just get for review, should they think that this is something good to move forward, and then, get your approval on the messaging that they would send out to the invitees or the public, or however they intend to do that part.
Yeah, and then even just a quick comment is my meeting with DPH on Monday or Tuesday, one of the two. The big question a lot of the towns are asking, well, what do we do with these graduations? All different towns have different, ideas, and what should we do? What shouldn't it be we be doing? And the only comment that the state made back was, try to hold off until you hear back from us. But I'm not sure when that's going to be. Like you said, June 5th is coming up quick. And so it's going to, if we want it done right, it's going to take some planning. And, so I think if we can do it with, the goals in mind of complying with those guidelines, then we should have a really good graduation for these kids.
I think that, like Lori was saying, that putting something out there that people can comply with is important. So to that aspect, not everybody, but a lot of people have different opinions about social distancing and different opinions about masks and things like that. And without getting into arguing right or wrong with anybody, I think that we do have to, if we're going to move forward with something like this, there does have to be delineated places where people are allowed to stand or congregate. Like, I don't think that just saying, 250 people come on down to this parade and you know what you're supposed to do, I don't think that that's gonna really, it doesn't give me the warm fuzzies.
There's an obvious conflict. The Summerfest has been canceled. When you said 250 people down, Summerfest's bigger than that, and I just thought, well, no Summerfest, so it's sad. It's all sad. What can we do for our seniors? I feel so bad.
This is Autumn. I just wanted to say that I think that we should move forward with that.
Thanks, Autumn. I agree.
Yeah, I think we should, however we agree to move forward.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the planning of this event and the actual event be contingent on our approval of their safety plan.
Yeah.
Which they can present to us next week. Anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second that.
that.
Second and a half. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Mary says
Bo.
aye.
Mary, Bo?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I was distracted by Evan trying to turn his lights on. What are you doing?
The
Okay,
auto light keeps turning off on me because I'm sitting here at my desk and I
okay.
couldn't get it to come on.
All right, so all in favor. So Evan, that if you want to let Bill and Scott know that we've contingently approved the event, and they just have them submit a safety plan for us for next week, and once we approve that, they'll be all set.
Yeah, I'll have them just send over whatever document they've got put together. And I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be pretty close to what all these other documents are looking like, right? I mean, distance, masks,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. So I'll make sure that you have that for next Wednesday.
And take the language off of Palmer's Facebook page.
For what event? Their graduation event?
What did he write about masks? Don't be a
Oh,
jerk.
the enforcement, unless you're being a jerk, that one. I will not be taking that one, Rich.
All right, Mary, do you have anything else for tonight? Mary?
She fell asleep.
I'm all set. Lori, we got this. It's all going to work out just fine.
Thank you for
Yeah,
volunteering to
Thank you.
step up and take that call load over. Bo, do you have anything else for tonight?
No, I'll be in touch with Autumn and, this prior discussion, just establish some, protocol, communicate with me on a tight basis as necessary. Mary also, I'll be talking to Mary just about communications on the issues discussed, as far as, helping Laurie out.
Yeah, as long as, it's strictly to response and not discussion of issues, you'll be fine. Okay.
If an adjournment motion is about to be on the table, I just want to thank everyone for your very productive patience and thank myself to engagement in this meeting of the Board of Health, which I consider historic in how many years I've been on this, everyone's individual efforts to have appropriately salvaged what could have very well descended into a dysfunctional meeting and ending up what I consider a most productive one. Thank you, one and all.
I agree, Bo. Well said. Thank you very much. We'll make a motion.
Thank you, Bo. And if anybody's still listening, thank you all for caring.
That's what it's all about.
All right, Bo, you want to make a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn and also to open this wine bottle I got right here.
Fantastic.
You go, Bo.
I'll second both of those for you, Bo. All right. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.